Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Ferg's Footy Fanfare. I'm Jay. Today I'm here with Ned. How you going, man?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Jay. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Now, this episode brings for special occasion. We've done it. We've finally done it. We've hit double digits, episode 10. So congratulations
To us?
to us, obviously,
Yeah,
no doubt. It's been a pretty, difficult path. We've really had to work for it, but we've got there at the end. And smooth sailing from here, you'd hope.
100%.
So interesting stuff happening in the footy world in the past week. Probably the main thing that's happened is the AFL Grand Final has been announced, the date and the venue. 24th of October, under lights at the Gabba. What are your thoughts?
I think it's probably the most logical idea for mine. Queensland really saved the competition, so they deserved every right to host a grand final. And I think this year is probably the year to have a night grand final, considering, there's not going to be 100,000 people going and all that. So, and probably not many of us are going to be able to gather around at people's houses to watch. But, I think it's a good idea to have it at night. And, the Gabba deserves it.
I saw a stat saying that the average ticket price they believe is going to be $400, and that would be without scalping or anything. So the AFL is still estimated to make over $12 million in ticket sales alone.
Are they going to have it at full capacity? Is that the plan?
I think the intention is to, given that everything remains on the right track in Queensland in terms of their COVID restrictions, but I don't think they're having any issues at all.
Yeah, I think they had a couple of little outbreaks, but I think they're usually on top of their tracing and all that. So I think, they've got it well under control.
So do you think this will have any implications on Western Australian and South Australian teams that are a lock for finals, such as Port Adelaide and West Coast?
Well, it's not really much different, really, if they were to play in a regular season, like a regular final series. Like they get to have their home finals at home. I don't know what will happen with West Coast, but in Port's scenario, they'll get a home qualifying final. They win that, they'll get a home prelim. Mm-hmm. So, and then they've got to go play somewhere else for the grand final, which usually happens every year. It's probably going to be a bit different for the Victorian teams, but that's what they've become accustomed to over the last 8 or so rounds? Been about 8 rounds, I think.
That's right. And if you look at this on face value, you'd think that would be a huge benefit for Brisbane. But we only have to look back last year and saw that they lost both of their finals at home. So their confidence, you'd imagine, would be not at the highest. And every team that's going to play them for the rest of the season and in finals would be well aware that last year they did lose both finals at the Gabba.
And especially now that, because Brisbane really have made a fortress out of the Gabba. Like during the home and away season last year, they were pretty much unstoppable there. And then, they came undone in the finals last year. But now teams have played a few games at the Gabba and probably sort of get a bit of a gist of how to play the ground, and which will prove at a disadvantage to Brisbane, I think, more so than an advantage.
Yeah, that's right. Have they lost at the Gabba this year? I don't think they lost to Hawthorn at the MCG, and they lost to
Geelong in Sydney.
SCG.
They lost to us at Metricon.
Yeah, so I don't think they've lost at the. They're the 3 losses that they've had, so they're yet to lose at the Gabba. A couple of close games in there. They had one with North and with St Kilda.
I think that was at Metricon, wasn't it? The North one.
Oh, okay, well,
that
there
was
you
at
go.
Metricon. Yeah.
I know that, for example, I've heard a lot of the commentators talk about it as well, is the shortness of the oval at the Gabba. Works very well for midfield-dominated teams. So Brisbane, obviously, right up there. And Richmond, you'd think, would be right up there as well if they get the experience of, looks like Edwards will be back in a couple of weeks as well, ready for finals.
Well, Richmond aren't a heavy clearance side. I think we're 15th in the comp for clearances.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Well, people that will not be adding to your clearance count will be Sydney Stack, and CCJ. So what are your thoughts on all of that, Ned?
I like the idea of them sending him home. They stuffed up and they need to pay the consequences. I don't know what the rules are, but obviously they've broken them. And yeah, I mean, to be fair, they're not regulars in the senior side, so it's probably not much great of a loss. But yeah, I don't know what to say about it really. I think.
Well, yeah, Stack has been in and out of the side this year, and I think that he was probably going to be struggling to make your top 22 with the players you've got coming back as well.
Yeah, I think he got dropped a few weeks ago, and he hasn't been as good this year as what he was in his patches that he had last year.
Yeah. So that would be interesting to see. I'm not too sure because I believe that's your Richmond's second strike now after the Cochin incident.
Yep.
So I think that's what's brought on the harsh financial punishment in this. So I'd imagine all of the boys at Richmond Football Club had a stern talking to make sure they're on their best behaviour. Because the third strike must be a pretty serious penalty. And will already be a difficult season next year in terms of finances.
Yeah, especially if, they aren't able to get full capacity crowds back for next year, which you'd say we'd hope. Yeah. I pretty well hope that we do.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, well, we may as well, on that note, begin to review round 15. How many games was there played this week? I think there was only 6 games played this week. We had quite a few teams in the bye. But it started off on Tuesday with Adelaide notching up their first win of the season.
Yeah, Adelaide played really well, didn't they?
They did. Yeah, they did.
Yeah. I think Hawthorn should be stripped of those 3 premierships after that performance. That was quite dreadful. And we saw what Hawthorn are capable of, good and bad. Previous round against Essendon, they were absolutely on fire against Essendon and just went into their shells. And good fact for you here, Jay, that Matthew Nicks is the first ever coach to win their first ever game against Alistair Clarkson.
Holy moly. Goodness gracious me. Ned's Nuggets of Knowledge brought to you.
We haven't got a sponsor yet.
No, that's all right. We'll have to get a segment started for that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Who can we have as sponsors? Could have Tinder Gold for you.
Tinder Gold.
Yeah.
Good one.
But no, I thought in the first quarter the writing was on the wall. Adelaide brought the intensity from the first bounce and they didn't capitalise in the first quarter. And they'd been struggling to do that all year, so that I presumed, as a lot of people would, that Hawks would come back into it and start to stamp their authority. But credit to Adelaide, they had more pressure, they were cleaner, and better execution of their skills throughout the whole game, and ended up being a 6-goal win.
Yeah.
So this leads to, there was obviously a very lengthy post-match interview with Alistair Clarkson talking about the quality of the draft and how it's compromised and how he's still yet to categorise it as a rebuild from top to bottom. So what is their next step then, if that's the case?
Yeah, well, they've seemed to always go out in the off-season and pick up quite handy players, not so much A-grade players, but, players who have made a name for themselves that are quite good players and then are able to elevate them to make them better. Like, you only got to look at Tom Mitchell, Chad Wingard, Tom Scully. Yeah, but that's the way they tend to go. But I think they've got a lot of young talent coming through, like Warple, Cousins, Sicily's still quite young.
Yeah.
So I think they probably need to look for the draft. I'm not saying it's a full rebuild, but I think they have to start, getting some games into some kids and start getting some kids through.
Yeah, I'm starting to see a few similarities in terms of like their top 5 or 6 players are good enough to be shaking it up with the best. But it's similar in the list of Essendon, where they really tend to dip off at the lower half of their quality of starting 22. And I don't think that's the appropriate way to be building a list for finals. You see, Essendon are stuck in a lull at the moment in terms of the same position for the last 3 or 4 years. So I think that could be an issue, which is actually a good segue onto the next game where they were defeated by West Coast by 15 points.
Inaccuracy really cost them in that one.
Yeah.
They probably could have won if they were accurate.
They played well enough. And you're right, just in front of goal. West Coast weren't amazing by any stretch, and they probably would have liked to have played a bit better considering the performance they put in the week before against Richmond. And they're still vying for top 4. They're just out at the moment, although they've played a game less than Richmond. But they've got, who do they finish off the season with? They've got the Dogs, St Kilda and North. So 2 of those games will be competitive.
And you think North would be a walk in the park?
You'd think the way that they've been playing, but we'll get to them a little bit later on. Oh, no, they had a bye this week. I'll take that back. It's good we don't have to talk about North. We'll be able to keep their 25 fans pretty cool, calm and collected this week.
Shout out to our North Melbourne fans if we have any that listen along. Chances are quite low, I reckon.
I'll get you to cover the next game that happened on Wednesday evening.
Richmond and Fremantle.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. It was quite a scrappy game. Richmond dominated the first quarter. Didn't really get bang for their buck going forward. I think they had 10 inside 50s or 12 inside 50s before Fremantle even had one. But did what they had to do, obviously. We're playing for a top 4 spot. So we did what we had to do. And I think the best sides, even though when they are challenged and it's quite an ugly game, they still win it.
Something that I have noticed with Richmond, especially up forward, is Tom Lynch. Geez, he's pretty reliable when he's having a shot on goal. I always feel like he's going to slot it.
He's good from range. I think when you put him in the sort of 30 to 40, or probably the 35 to 50 to 55 meter range, he usually slots them. He's had a few shockers this year. But
he's got a bit of big man see-ball, kickball mentality.
Yeah, but most of the time, he's quite reliable.
Yeah, so once again, it just showed you guys, not necessarily able to get the best quality out of your game, but to still win pretty easily in the end. Nearly double their score. So that'll have you guys set up. You reckon you guys will make top 4?
I don't think so. No, who are we fighting against? Is West Coast who we're fighting against?
Yeah, you're equal. You're 2 points above Geelong and West Coast, and you play Geelong next week. This week.
Yeah, well, obviously that game's going to really dictate if we play top 4 or not. I think Geelong are a better side than us at the moment. So I don't think we'll win, and hopefully West Coast slip up in a game. I was sort of hoping Essendon were going to make them slip up, but that didn't happen. So I don't think we'll finish top 4 personally.
Be interesting to see. I think regardless of whichever of those 5 teams that slip out, I think that the other 3 teams, 6th, 7th and 8th, would be pretty much filling in spots.
Yeah.
To just making numbers. Whereas
I think your Saints could pose a challenge to someone, especially like a West Coast or even Richmond.
I think that game will be very interesting that they're playing next Thursday, I believe. I think that'll be a great test for St Kilda, and it's one that they need to win as well because they're just vying to make the 8 at the moment.
Yeah, if you win that, you're nearly a lock-in.
Yeah, well, and I guess this brings us to the upset of the round. and one that would have really cemented Melbourne's spot in the top 8. However, they came undone to the Sydney Swans up at Kazali Stadium. Did you get a chance to watch any of that?
Was that the earlier game? That was
Yeah,
the
it
earlier
was.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I probably came in and watched about the last 5 minutes and was completely stunned by the scoreboard. But I didn't catch much of it.
Yeah, in the first half in particular, there was about a 3-goal breeze, and Melbourne were kicking with the breeze in the first quarter. And then, they just didn't take advantage of it. And Sydney did and had a 4 or 5 goal break at halftime, and that was just enough to get it done. What did I take away from the game? Melbourne were very disappointing in front of goal. In particular, they had a lot of makeable shots. I know Langdon missed a couple that he should have made. And I think Gawn kicked a point late when it was already over. But that would be really disappointing. I'd have them as the losers of the week.
Yeah, especially after a good performance against your mob.
That's right, yeah. To be able to, scrap through and get that huge win, which is essentially a 2-game turnaround for them, to have done all the hard work and then to slip up against Sydney, they'd be really disappointed with that. Yeah. And once again, it's out of their hands. So who do they have next? And Fremantle next. They're definitely, as they proved against Richmond, they can bring it up to them for large portions of the game as well.
Yep.
We had BWS v Carlton.
Yeah, I did actually watch a bit of this game, and Carlton were quite good, and GWS were really woeful. But
they were horrible in the first 3 quarters.
Yeah, talking about the first 3 quarters, and then GWS just found another gear and were able to make, they played pretty well perfectly in that 4th quarter.
Makes you wonder. Now, I'm not sure if you heard the news throughout the week, but GWS have extended Leon Cameron's contract by 2 seasons. What are your takes on that?
There's not much in the coaching department, really, to recruit anyone. So, he's got them to a grand final where that without a few very good players. So, I think he's very much a worthy coach. So I think it's probably the more logical decision for mine.
I think you make a really good point where perhaps if there was someone, because they wouldn't be looking for a new coach, they'd be looking for someone that can go in and win a grand final, super experienced.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it does concern me at times. We talk about it often enough, is he's got the keys to the Ferrari and, first 3 quarters, and then all of a sudden it was a 5-minute burst that got them in the lead in the last. So they'll have to improve, and they've got a really tight 3 weeks coming up. Currently in the 8 by a game, but lower percentage than Melbourne. But they do have Adelaide next week, so it could be a chance for a percentage booster.
Yeah.
And then we had last night's game where we had Bris Vegas getting over the Collingwood Football Club.
I did not watch this at all because rugby is on.
That's right.
All right, a few technical difficulties there. Sorry, guys.
My bad.
But I was watching the rugby, celebrating quite hard. Knights playing finals, first time in 7 years, so happy days.
No, fair enough. To be completely honest, that was probably a better quality of game than the one that was put up yesterday. I did feel like Collingwood missed out on a chance, though. I thought that they left it a bit too late to be really attacking and, throw the kitchen sink at it. And it was kind of similar in the Carlton game. They didn't start throwing bodies forward and everyone at it to the last minutes. So I thought that Collingwood missed out a bit here. And it feels like every game last week had some implication on the battle for the 8s. And this one does as well. So Collingwood's played a game more than all the other teams around them. They've got the bye this week coming up. So if St Kilda managed to beat Hawthorn and GWS managed to beat Adelaide, then all of a sudden you've got Collingwood in 8th spot. and that could be
Yep.
tight for them. I know that they play Port Adelaide in the last round. Tyler's Port Adelaide Power. And
The pair.
tight game.
How about? I know we don't usually talk about off-field stuff, but how about the thing circling around their 2012 best and fairest?
I did hear that. Can you tell the audience? Because I did hear about this, but I'd like to be reinformed.
I didn't read much about it, but apparently there's something to do with that their 2012 best and fairest might have been rigged. I think our great mate Kane Corns won it.
Yeah,
something like that.
I heard that it was
something
to save costs of some kind. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't know with that mob. They breed them a bit differently down that neck of the woods, that's for sure. And you've only got to look at some of their supporters.
Well, that's right. I mean, and it's going to be an absolute pleasure for the listening audience. We're going to have to bring Tyler Buchanan on for maybe a dissection of the Port Adelaide Football Club and all those around him.
Well, I've said to him on multiple occasions that he doesn't fit in as a Port Adelaide supporter.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
It's a bit nice. Geez, you must have been nice to him that day.
Yeah, that was actually a compliment.
Port Adelaide has rejected claims by an Adelaide radio host. The club rigged its 2012 B&F in order to save money on bonuses and player contracts.
Ooh.
Just reading through the particulars. Give me a second. I don't want to throw people under the bus, but I can only tell the truth. I'll name someone here just so you know the credibility of the story. I spoke to Matthew Primus, who was the coach that year, and he was sacked halfway through the year. It was against GWS the day he got sacked, and Kane had a shocker. In the first half, he kicked the ball to the opposition 6 times. And I said to Primus, why did you give him the best player that day? And he said, I didn't. And I said, well, you did because he got votes that day. Goodness gracious me. Corn said he earned a $30,000 bonus for winning the award that year, and that other players may have been in line to earn more if they had won. Well, indeed, although that has been categorically denied. So I guess we'll never get to the bottom of that, but isn't that the case with so many things in the media?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll have a quick browse through round 16. What games you got for us, Ned Wardo?
So we start off today with, speaking about Port Adelaide take on North Melbourne tonight at Metricon Stadium, the home of football.
Actually, we've had a nice couple of segues today. Shows that we're starting to notice our way around and starting to get a bit more professional, a bit more experience in the field.
That's it, mate.
Gonna make you blush.
Yeah. Who have you got for this one?
You'd like to think that Port Adelaide would do it pretty easy, especially with the last time North Melbourne were out, they got spanked by Gold Coast. I'm going to tip Port Adelaide. I think they're going to do it fairly convincingly.
Yeah. So I know we don't condone betting on this page, but are you a bit inclined to chuck a cheeky 5 on North Melbourne at $6.50?
$6.50. Well, look, as you said, we're not the biggest gamblers, but we'll have to take that over to our other sponsor, Mark Costa, who's our main bookmaker. And you know what he's like when he sees that. He might chuck that as one leg in his 15-leg multi this evening.
And that might cost him. That might be the one that cost him.
Please remember to gamble responsibly, unlike our cousin Mark Costa. But at $6.50, I mean, it's pretty rare these days that you find such differences in betting because
it's pretty crap to bet on football, really, except for putting multis on. Obviously, I don't bet that often on football because I'm responsible.
Yeah, absolutely. Few and far between, as responsible as you, my kind sir.
All right, let's chalk into the next game. Your mob against your mate Harry's mob.
Yeah, in years gone by, this has been a worry game, considering the people I tend to hang around being Hawthorn fans, and generally they have the better of us. However, I would be very, very pessimistic to think that St Kilda would lose tomorrow. Just in terms of how much they need to win this game, in terms to stay in the eights and pencil themselves in for finals, I think they're going to rock up. And I think the way Hawthorn's been playing, once again, I'd be surprised if this wasn't a convincing win.
Well, you guys will be especially filthy after that loss to Melbourne, which you guys probably should have won. So come out, with a head full of steam. But Hawthorn might do that in return after a very embarrassing performance against the Crows.
That's right. And there's nothing to suggest that what they played against Adelaide is the calibre of football they should be playing every week. So you'd imagine that Clarko would get stuck into them. However, impossible for me to go past St Kilda this week.
So you're not going to... Do you reckon our cousin Mark will have a little bit of a bo peep at Hawthorn at $4?
No, I reckon he might go for the big margin St Kilda, Jack Billings to have 20 touches, Jack Steele to have plus 10 contested disposals, and Max King to kick 2+ goals.
What about Tim Membry?
Well, there's a bit of an injury cloud over Tim Membry at the moment. Yeah, he's I know that he had surgery just on his finger earlier on this week, so he's a 50-50. But
yeah, right.
I think it's best that we don't talk to our cousin about Tim Membry. I think he's burnt him once before.
What about Luke Dunstan, mate? Is there going to be any of him to get over 15 or over 20 touches, averaging 21 disposals?
Yeah, it would be very nice if he starts getting a gig. I know that he's a week or two away back from full fitness after having a pectoral injury. I don't mind Al Dunstan. Pretty reliable unit in the guts. The next game. Now, this is normally the country game, isn't it?
Yeah.
Better pass it off to the country boy.
Well, these two usually meet down in Colac for the pre-season. I don't pay too much attention to either side because I don't really like either side. But I think Geelong will outclass Essendon. Essendon have been at thereabouts. They really challenged West Coast last week. They they really stuck up to Richmond in the Dreamtime game. But I think for mine, Geelong are probably the front runners for the flags, and I think they'll do this one quite comfortably.
Yeah, I'm also going to tip Geelong. You can take out of it what you like, but that game against Western Bulldogs kind of, after the first quarter when they were 6 goals down, I genuinely thought they were no chance, but they managed to get through. Man, Gary Rowan amazes me. Sometimes he looks like the best player to ever pick up a football, and then sometimes he's an absolute ghost. So he was in one of his moods where he decided to tear the game apart. And when he's like that, he's very dangerous.
Well, we only had to look at, a couple of grand finals that the Ducks have gone into when he played for the Ducks, and he was pretty quiet.
Yeah, in
2016 and 2014, coming in as an X factor to get Sydney over the line, and did sweet FA.
Yeah, so I'm going to go Geelong, and I'm not too sure if it might be mathematically possible for Essendon to make finals, but I think with the results going this week, as I intend them to, that will be it for their 2020 finals aspirations.
And then we celebrate.
Yeah, and then we wait till February and we make sure that we're ready to party for a pretty significant monumental event.
We might actually have to host a proper party if we can.
Go live, that's it, chuck an event. I've got a couple of, bring on Ronnie Kumar, he's a good Essendon fan, he's a believer.
We've got a few family members as well.
Yes, we do.
A few close to us.
Geez, we could have a whole Q&A session. I like I'm smelling what we're stepping in.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one. We've got Western Bulldogs against West KKK Coast.
This is going to be a very interesting game. I'm going to tip the Dogs for this. Once again, it's the playing away from home. They just instill me with no confidence at the moment when they're playing away from home, West Coast. Although they didn't play as badly as I thought they would against Richmond. It was just Richmond were far, were really, really good. I'm going to tip the Dogs.
Yeah, The dogs have played really well. When they've played really well, sorry, I should say. They've really been on. Like that first quarter against Geelong was absolute dynamite, and the way they played against Melbourne as well, a few weeks back, was really good. So if they deliver that, they'll get the chockies.
I think they've got a bit more to play for as well, just in terms of, I think, I don't know, but I'd imagine they'd be a bit more up for it to finish in the top 8 than a double chance for West Coast finishing in the top 4. So perhaps they'll be a tad more hungry.
I'm still going to go West Coast, though.
Yeah.
I just think the class of West Coast will stand up because it needs to.
I see you there. You're teaming up with Gary in your West Coast sympathising ways.
I don't sympathise for West Coast.
Shannon Hearn best on ground next time.
Next, I can't stand.
Who's that?
I can't stand that Jake Waterman. He just looks like an absolute tool.
Yeah, the haircut.
Sorry if he's a listener.
The haircut isn't a real selling point for him, is it? He's pretty handy up forward, though, is that, when they've got Oscar Allen floating around with him as well to play as that additional tool, because everyone that plays on him, they don't have the height for him. So it's a good mark.
All right. Moving on, we have Melbourne hosting the Dockers at Cazaly Stadium in Cairns.
Now, I do just have to interject here on a few separate notes. It's happened at Cairns and it's also happened, I think, in Alice Springs as well. Those playing services, I'm a bit of a lawn porn fan myself, but those playing services are remarkable. I can't believe that. That was like carpet. That is outrageous.
Yeah,
that is the best quality turf I've ever seen. They look like they should be playing the Masters on there. They look like going down to Augusta for a round of 18. It's outstanding. So full props to the groundskeepers over there.
Yeah, that surface did look good for Dreamtime in Darwin. Sure did.
In terms of the game, I'm not too sure if it's going to rack up to the quality of the ground. But I'm going to tip Melbourne.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go for the Dockers.
Oh, I think that's fair enough, personally.
I was very sold on Fremantle against Richmond the other night. I thought their second and third quarters were very good, and even when Richmond got on top in the final quarter, Fremantle was still, they still made them earn it. And I think Melbourne aren't that quality of a side at the moment. You only had to look back to the other night as well, that if they get Melbourne on a night like Sydney got them, they'll beat them.
Yeah. I think that's one of the main issues with the way that Melbourne plays, is that when they're on, they're one of the scariest and fiercest teams in the competition, but it's too inconsistent. When they're off, they struggle to get any flow and any proper execution about their game plan.
Yep.
But I'm still going to tip them, based purely on a little bit. Once again, they got more to fight for. And I think that if they lose, they're going to find it really difficult, considering they need to play GWS in their last couple of games.
Yes. All right, so moving on to the next game, which will be the first of a double header on Tuesday. We have the Adelaide Crows hosting the Giants at the home of South Australian football, being the Adelaide Oval.
That's it. Nothing better than a Tuesday doubleheader when we're waiting for footy on a Saturday night. So,
yep. Where do you see this one leading?
GWS for me. I think pretty comprehensively. Yeah. Although if they'll need to play like they did in the last quarter against Carlton from the outset.
Yeah. So you don't reckon there will be any ganders from our great cousin at Adelaide at $3.60 outsiders?
I don't think 360 is enough bang for buck.
Nah, not for mine.
No, maybe the small win and then a couple of players to get a few posies, maybe Himmelberg for a goal or two.
Tex to snag a couple. Is Tex playing still?
Yeah, he's surely still getting around.
He's still kicking.
Yeah, he kicked
still
a few.
Around.
I think he tied Modra's record against the Hawks, or maybe even broke it. I reckon he's right around there.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, then. I'm going to go the Giants as well. So, moving on to the second one of our Tuesday night doubleheader, we will see Carlton hosting Sydney at the home of football, Metricon Stadium.
It's a tight game. It's really a flip of the coin for me. I'm going to tip Carlton.
I think you can trust Carlton a bit more than Sydney, even though Sydney have been quite impressive the last few weeks. I think there's probably just a bit more faith in Carlton.
Yeah, just Sydney having a younger squad, maybe a bit more error, a bit more room for inconsistency. But in saying that, Carlton doesn't get me going at all, really, in the way that they played. I've got no confidence in them as well. But I will tip Carlton in a tight game.
Yeah. I mean, Sydney does look pretty appealing to pick Sydney, but I think I just put a bit more faith in Carlton.
Yeah. Oh, and then the final game.
The Q Clash. You'd say Brisbane would win this one, being at the Gabba.
Yep. No, we found out. I know it wasn't your main nugget of wisdom, but it was one of Ned's side nuggets of wisdom that Brisbane have not lost at the Gabba. I can't see them losing to Gold Coast. As much as we've come to learn that I'm a bit of a Gold Coast sympathiser, I can't see them beating Brisbane.
No, I think they're starting to hit the wall a bit, the Gold Coast. They did win last week, though, didn't they?
Yeah, they had a big win over obviously. North.
Yeah, and then, absolutely towered North. So, I mean, Gold Coast could still finish the year, around 11th. Depending on a few results, they could go maybe finish up in 12th or 11th.
Well, it's amazing. It's huge props to their whole, club and organisation. There were so many pundits and commentators 12 months ago talking about axing the team. Look, I think they've exceeded my expectations. If we listen to our first podcast, I might have had them just in the bottom four. No, but they've been far better than expected.
Yeah. But in saying that, how high they could finish, in return, they could finish as low as 15th.
Yeah, so they've still got over 100%. It's amazing.
Yeah.
5 wins, 8 losses. Stewie Do knows what he's doing up there, mate. He's got that pie runner warming.
Got the lollies.
Yeah. That's it. They're not for players, mate.
Nah. No snacks for the players. The oranges.
Beautiful work, Ned. Thanks for that.
All right. That's probably about all she really wrote for this episode, I'd say.
That's it. So looking forward to our next catch-up. Get on to the Hunter Clark episode 11 coming up soon. And by then...
Jason Castagna episode, mate.
Oh, yeah. Jason Castagna. How could I forget?
And just a question for you. Is Jaden Short in any way, shape or form in discussion for All-Australian, even the 40?
Look,
your mate.
I'm gonna have to eat a bit of humble pie and say that he is. His quality of possession is elite. I'll give him that. Although, in my opinion, I reckon he's a bit of a downhill skier.
But he can kick a ball, that bloke.
That's it. If you can kick a ball as well as he does, then you're allowed to be a downhill skier. So, I think he's probably in talks for the 40. Yes.
And also, just going with All-Australian, so if you're picking an All-Australian team, would you have Charlie Cameron or Tom Papley as small forward? But they'll probably both make it.
Yeah, I can't have both.
Yeah, if you're picking one.
Jeez. Based on form this year, I'd probably have to go Papley.
Yeah, I feel that as well for this year.
Considering the quality of ball that comes down to him, and if you have a look at points scored and stuff, the percentage of points scored, you've also got Cameron playing as the main forward down there, whereas I know that at times Sydney has had McLean and all that, and Papley kind of running around. But I also think that Cameron will make the All-Australian team.
Yeah.
And if I had to pick one of them based on their performance this season, Papley for me.
And do you reckon your mate Jack Steele will get in?
I reckon he will now, yeah. The game that he played against Melbourne was outstanding. Signed a 2-year extension with the club this week, which I think's awesome. I wouldn't have minded if they had thrown a 10-year contract at him, to be honest. I think that he's going to be the next captain of the football club, and I reckon he's an awesome player to have, and he's probably just about to break through into that A grade if he hasn't already.
And speaking of future captains, would Jack Graham or Nathan Broad or Toby Nankervis be the absolute priority for Richmond to re-sign?
Look, personally, I'd pick Jack Graham. I think that once you have someone that you found out is very handy in the middle, in terms of pressure that they put on, tackles they apply, once you know that they're going to hold their own in the midfield, I think it's bad decisions to let them go cheaply.
Yeah, I think they should be throwing, a decent offer at him. I think, especially this year. I thought last year he was bit how you going, and same with the start of this year, seemed quite slow. But once he's come back in the side, he's been quite good, and yeah, he can lay a tackle. He's a big cuddly bear.
Yeah, good sized bridge. Who's your tip for the Jack Dyer medal?
Yeah, our best and fairest. I'd probably be saying Shea Bolton, I reckon, at this point in time. I reckon he's played pretty well. I think, I reckon surprisingly, I reckon Dustin Martin will be up there. And I think maybe even Tom Lynch might get quite a high finish. He's been quite consistent with his goal scoring.
Lunch might get some votes.
Yeah.
You no, sorry, you go.
Also, Newcastle Knights need to sign Kalen Ponga for life. I know they just extended him to 2024, but they need to sign that kid for life.
It's pretty interesting. I look through him, and the only time I can really remember of Ponga on the field was when Pappenhausen broke his ankles. So,
gee whiz.
Well, I guess that's probably a good way to leave it before it ends up being a verbal altercation on the podcast.
Yeah.
Beautiful talking with you as always, Ned.
You too, Jay. I'm going to go watch the shootout now for the Supercars.
Smart man. Super Saturday. All right. See you later, mate.
See you, mate.